So, welcome back, everyone. My name is Josh, and this is the channel where I try out new tech that I find interesting and/or stuff that I get asked about in the course of a regular week. This week, we're going to walk through a setup of IBM Cloud Satellite. You might have seen the demos, you might have heard the announcements, or maybe even have tried the beta. However, what I'll be doing today is a cluster setup with only private IPs within a private network segment, no VPN, no network bridging. This is a bit of magic, so let's see how it works. So we start here with 3 nodes, and they'll form the basis of the control plane that will be deployed on the remote site behind the firewall. So as you can see here, I'm just shelling to those nodes. By the way, this is a jump host. So this is not actually my desktop. I'm actually, this host basically straddles the public and private side of the network, and I've deployed this, and this is the only way that we can access the 3 hosts that'll form the control node, the control plane. So right now I'm just doing a yum update. As you can see, this will take a little bit of time. It's a prerequisite to get all your packages updated. Okay, now that the packages have been updated, as you can see here, what I'm doing is I'm updating the required repositories for Satellite. You can find this in the Satellite host setup instructions, and I'm doing this for all 3 machines, as you can see. So with all the packages repositories set up, I'm just doing right now a couple of checks just to make sure all the requirements are met. Nothing should be mounted to /var/data. So I'm just checking that amongst other things. So what I'm doing next is installing a couple of tools which I will use to check the network, which is really important if you are doing stuff on premise. Oftentimes you're doing stuff within a private network. It could reside within some kind of VMware host, and you really don't know what kind of communication structures that you have available within the host network, right? So it may be managed by a different team. It may be invisible to you. So what I typically do is I'll install something which will give me some kind of like probing ability. It depends on the administrator of your network, of course. You may not have the ability to install it, but I assure you, extremely useful. So I usually install something like ifconfig, nettools, and I'll install, nmap as well as netcat. This will give you the ability to really check if you have access to the ports that you need in order for satellite to properly set up. And if you don't, you may run the script and you may find yourself having to redo the whole thing all over again. So if have any questions, you'll have to refer to the documentation, which I'll post in the YouTube link, and you should be able to. It's pretty clear, but what trips people up most of all is that inability to see what's happening within the network. So my recommendation is work with your networking administrator, or be very clear about what you have to do and what requirements have to be met, because you don't really need to set up any VPNs or anything. However, you do need certain outbound requirements, and you do need certain inbound via gateway, and you do need host-to-host communication with most of the ports open. And that usually isn't a problem, but we've encountered issues where it has been a problem. So now that I have Netcat and all my net tools installed, what I go ahead and do is I'm going to open up a listener to just randomly check if the ports that I need between the hosts are open. So as you can see, I opened a listener on host 1 on port 30,000, and I can either telnet or I can do a netcat to that exact host, as you can see. So it's to .9. From .9 to .8. So I'm going to netcat 10.242.64.8 to the desired port, and I should be able to establish a connection. What it does, it opens up a TCP connection, and it just dumps whatever text that I have to the standard output, which you can see on the left. It's test. So any kind of text that I put into the machine on the middle, it just outputs to the other machine, thus verifying the connection. Okay, now that the host-to-host connections have been verified, what I'm going to go ahead and do is make some changes to the security group. Now, this is very much akin to what you'd encounter within an enterprise network. This is obviously deployed within an IBM Cloud virtual private cloud. So it's a private subnet which has no inbound connectivity. There is no private public IP. However, all traffic that's connecting to the internet, you can still do that via a gateway. So in this, what you're seeing is I'm actually just doing a real quick test to see if my interfaces are correct. As you can see, just the IP route command, and we just have to confirm for all the hosts that all the interfaces are in ETH0 or one of the standard interface names. So once I've checked the interfaces and we've confirmed that everything is correct, I go ahead and add or open all the ports on the firewall just to make sure inbound traffic is not blocked in any way that I need to. So, anything from 30,000 to 32,767 needs to be open, TCP and UDP. The instructions are on the link that I'll post in the video below. Pretty straightforward. Just follow all of those and you should be pretty good. Just make sure you don't forget the TCP as well as the UDP. Outbound rules can be whatever you want, which is open it to the whole range. So I do some final checks, and then I go ahead and make the shell script executable on all of the machines before I actually start executing the attached script. It's easier to just have three windows open at once, so we can just copy and paste commands as we go. And then from here, once it's executable by the system, I'm going to just copy the command from, just do one round of final checks, and we're going to copy the commands, and then go ahead and execute the attach. So before I run the attach, I'm just going to check if everything is okay. We're still waiting for the hosts. That's what the location looks like. We cannot see any hosts here at the moment. However, we should be able to see it fairly quickly. So I just go up and copy the execution command. It's really just like /attach.shell, but I just like to copy it just because I'm lazy. This is me just kind of clicking around because I forgot where the link is. This clearly isn't the link. And there it is. It's nohub bash /temp attach.shell, and it's important to just remember the and at the end, simply because you can then just run it as a background service. So just going to run it real quick. All right, before I forget, I actually do a little something. I actually add a pseudo user into each of the hosts just in case I have to debug something. The moment you run the script and it runs successfully, you don't, if you've been logging in with root, you'll no longer have SSH root access, which means you're effectively locked out of the system. So it's advisable if you want to have host level access, machine level access to the system, to just add a pseudo user with a secure password, and you'll be able to get in post deployment to do whatever else you need to do. So you can see here that I'm just adding a user, Josh. I'm actually in the background, I'm Googling just instructions on how to do it. It's really just add user and adding the adding the user with a password and adding the user to a sudo group. And once that is done, you'll have sudo access, and we'll just test that as you will see shortly. And once that's done, I do it for all 3 machines and any other workers that I actually set up as part of the cluster, just in case. Users have been added. The sudo users have been added to the sudo group. We're going to run the bash script to attach the host to the control plane. Okay, once you've run the attached script, you'll see that, it just kind of hangs. And if you run a journal CTL, you'll see that it actually just does this sort of loop. As you can see here, it just does this loop. It basically is listening for something, for an action that that you'll have to do on the IBM Cloud in order to trigger that attached to the location. So you can see here that these hosts are visible, and we are now assigning the hosts into each one of the zones that we have that we're supposed to. So each one of the hosts are supposed to be spread out across 3 different zones, and all the hosts have now been assigned. And just hang on while the cluster is provisioning. Now, once the cluster has started or is done provisioning, you'll see the normal status here, and you'll see that the control plane is now normal. You should, for a normal, non-problematic deployment, you'll see that all the link status should be enabled with addresses populated across all the lines. All things are good. You'll notice that I only have 3 hosts, so it's only a control plane. There is nothing you can actually do at the moment without any workers. So I actually go ahead and I am navigating to my OpenShift provisioning, and I will just provision an instance into those hosts. So it'll push down some licensing. It'll make sure that the control plane is set up properly. I just give it a name, like London Sat or something. And then I click create. So a final check. And I just deploy the cluster. Okay, so as you can see, I don't have any worker nodes. So I've gone ahead and done the attach for the worker nodes. It's exactly the same process that you'll have to go through. Set up the host as what you need, and as you saw in the earlier part of the video, you'll have to put your attached script into it, and then once the hosts are online, you assign it to be a worker. Okay, as you can see here. So right now, it is provisioning what it needs to provision in order to provision it as a worker, and just give it a little bit of time, and it should come up with a status to tell you what is available and what is not, or if you have any errors in your deployment. Okay, so nothing's happening at the moment. It's still 0%. This might take a little bit of time. Usually it takes like 20 minutes or so just to push the configurations down and have it run. I think if it's close to completing, the host should actually do a reboot. So if you just wait a sec, and I think it'll start that process very shortly. So I'm just doing some checks. You can actually just go and get a coffee at this point in time. Okay, you can see here that it's already rebooting the machine. So I just do a quick check to see if, so I'm actually logged out of the worker nodes at the moment. I'm impatient, so I just usually just keep clicking around. So the machines are rebooting at the moment. And finally, you can see that it is starting the worker deployment. So it's not uncommon that before everything is ready, you see this critical not ready signal. Don't be alarmed. It is something that is very normal. Typically what happens is one of the hosts will become normal, followed by the rest. But once everything is deployed, you get a signal that all the hosts are in a critical state. before it starts becoming normal. So you can see here that we're now 33% normal. So it's 1/3 of the hosts are normal. I'm actually just trying to go and click into the web console, and it's not ready yet. So I'm just doing a test here. Remember, this whole thing is deployed behind a firewall. So technically, you don't have access to the web console over the internet, which we're going to demonstrate here, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to just try and get into web console on the jump host. So you can see here I have a browser. This, again, if you just watch from this point, this actually straddles like both, the private as well as the public network. So I'm just trying to do a quick ping to see what kind of address it comes up with. I need to get rid of that slash. Okay, so as you can see, like the ping responds with a private IP because with this computer, it is actually accessible. So I just do a refresh, go back and open up the web console, and voila, I have the OpenShift web console ready to go. I'm going to do a different test now. I'm going to try to get onto the console using my my desktop. As you can see, just real quick, I'm just going to get out of here. I'm just going to try it from over here. So again, same thing. Like this is the public internet. And I'm just going to try to open up the web console. And obviously, like this is impossible because the address is not accessible via a public route. So some of you are probably asking, oh, so what exactly does the IBM Cloud see and how does it actually manage the cluster? It actually manages the cluster using a set of telemetry. So you can see cluster health, you can see some logs, which I will show in the next video. But at the moment, you have now set up a cluster running on a private network, behind the firewall, no VPN setup, and it's getting really late, and I'm going to say goodbye for now, and I hope to see you guys again real soon. See ya.